Thank you for the opportunity to have us here today. I want to start with one concept and one thing we focus on. One of the reasons we're here today is to talk about how speaking the English language and having a full understanding of the English language will help you economically, right? So who in here wants more money? Anybody? Anybody have all the money that they need right now? Right? Do you have all the money that you need right now? You have everything that you want right now? None of us do. I don't. There's things that I would like to do. I would love to go to Cambodia. I would love to go to Vietnam. I would love to go visit some of those other countries. I have friends from El Salvador. I would love to go and visit their families there. But I don't have the opportunity to do that because I don't have the amount of money that I need to be able to do that. So a little bit of a background, I'm the president of the Louisville Area Chamber of Commerce. And so what that means is the chamber represents a lot of businesses in the area. People like the hospital here in town, Medical Center Louisville. Small businesses like Leo's business. His business, he's a professional speaker. And so we have large businesses and small businesses. And so we're the people that advocate for them. We're the ones that give them the voice when it comes to making decisions in the community. Sometimes when you drive down the road in Louisville, the roads are not, they have potholes or the sidewalks are not fixed. Last year in November, the chamber pushed for an election and the citizens of Louisville voted to spend $135 million to fix roads, sidewalks, support the police, fire department, and to build a new multi-generational recreation center. Huge. So have you ever been to a recreation center where they have like swimming pools or a basketball court? Well, this is going to be huge, 100,000 square feet. And that's made possible because the chamber got involved and other people got involved to make sure that happened. So a little bit about me. I want to talk a little bit about my parents first. My dad's family came to Texas from Nuevo Leon, Mexico in about 1908, 1909. They were trying to escape the war, the revolution that was happening in Mexico at that time. That journey is different than other immigrant stories because when you're trying to escape a war, you're trying to save your life. You're trying to save your children's lives. So my my grandparents came here with their families, hundreds of them, came to San Marcos, just south of Austin, to escape war. So they left their family, they left their houses, they left their ranches behind so they could come here to escape war. They didn't know where else to go, but they knew that they could be safe if they came to Texas. So they came here, they stayed here about 10 years, the war ended, and almost about 60% went back. They didn't want to live here. They're not from here, they didn't know anybody here, and they wanted to go back home, and so they did. But 40% stayed here, and my grandfather he stayed, and my dad was a little kid at the time, and so they stayed. But of course, they didn't have any education. They lived on a ranch, and so they became sharecroppers. So what they did, and it's not prevalent, it doesn't happen up here as much, but in Central Texas, there's more ranches and farms, and so they worked on a farm picking cotton, picking whatever vegetables they needed to pick, whatever was coming to the season, and that's where they lived. So they didn't have a house. They had like a shack. They had a building that had walls and roof, but there was no restroom, there was no water, and that's where they lived. And so insects and all that could come in to the house, but that's all they had. Yes, you have a question?
What's a shack?
So a shack is a building.
That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, a shack is a building that has no, so think about a house, a little tiny house that has no windows. It doesn't have electricity, so there's no light in there. It's just an area to protect you from the rain. But there's no restrooms, no electricity, nothing in there, inside of it. There's no kitchen. It's just four walls and a roof. And so that's what a shack is. Now we see them now in some houses. People have them behind their house. They keep their lawnmower in, but like that, but made of wood. And it wasn't nice wood. It was whatever was left over, whatever they could find to make something. So my parents got married in 1944. My mother lived in a house that was like that didn't even have a floor. Like right now we have carpet here. Their floor was dirt. Now they lived in San Marcos, a city, in a community. It wasn't like out in the country someplace, but that's where they lived. And so anyway, they got married. They had 11 kids. I'm number 10. But they pushed us and they encouraged us to go to school and to learn. And they encouraged us to learn English. Blessing. They didn't want us to forget how to speak Spanish or forget our culture, but they wanted us to remember those things and to celebrate those things. So we still celebrate Dia de los Muertos. The most important holiday for us is, we're Catholics, so the most important holiday for us is Christmas. And so all of my 8 brothers and 2 sisters at Christmas time, and we live all over different places, but on Christmas Eve, we're together. We have tamales, we have hot chocolate, we say a rosary, and we give thanks for what we celebrate Christmas about. And so that ties that piece. But then so speaking the English language is, then I'll talk a little bit more about that and a little bit of my journey, but I want to talk a little bit about my parents first. My dad had 8th grade education. He never got past 8th grade because he had to work. They lived on a farm and he had to work. He didn't have those opportunities. My mom didn't care. She still went to school. She went to school, and when she met my dad in 1944, she was her first year in college. Now remember, she lived in a house that had a dirt floor. To make a living, she didn't live with her parents. Her mother passed away when she was 2 years old, and her dad remarried and moved, so she moved in with an aunt and a cousin. And so to make a living, they used to wash clothes outside in a campfire, like with a big pot and water. That's how they made a living. And this was in like the early 40s. But then she went to school, but she dropped out of school for 1 year, married my dad, but she still went back to school later on and became a professional, and she became an educator. But that's a little bit about my parents' story. I'll talk about mine in a little bit. I'll give Lalo a chance to talk a little bit about his journey. Okay?
Good morning.
Mine is working, myself.
My microphone is actually working. Good morning. I like to do like the comedians, they go to a theater and they go, "Good morning, New York," and everybody goes crazy. I'm gonna go, "Good morning, Kilo." Is it on? Did I put this thing on?
This one's on now.
Okay, good. Now we can hear you, because we couldn't hear you at all before. So we don't know anything you just said.
So Kilo's still fighting farmers too, right?
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, fighting farmers.
Fighting farmers.
All right, so
It's on the water tower.
my name is, now I turn mine off. My name is Leo Cardenas, and my job, I'm a professional speaker. In case you couldn't tell, I actually really love having a microphone and having people hear me. And I speak about body language, which is really cool. How many of you know what body language is? Raise your hand if you know what body language is.
You're all doing it right now.
I'm looking at everybody here. I call myself kind of a creeper because I observe people for a living. I actually go to Starbucks or I go to any place where there's a lot of people and actually watch and observe what is known as body language. Body language is what you say with your body, with your hands, with your face, without actually using your words, right? So your expressions of happiness, for example, how do you smile when you're happy? You. How do you smile when you're happy? Okay, show me a happy face. There it is, she's smiling right now. Show me an angry face. Everybody, put an angry face. How do you look when you're angry? How do you look when you're bored? I can see it right now. You're all bored right now. So I gotta make you happy. So that's what I actually observe. I actually watch people's body language. And if you didn't know this, the way that you smile in Vietnam, where's the Vietnam kid? Right there. Cambodia, or anywhere else in South America, we all have the same expressions. It's universal when it comes to our faces. So happiness, sadness, anger, all that is the same in any other country. So that's actually really cool because then that's how we communicate. Even without words, we're able to communicate with each other, which is what happened to me. I came to the United States back in 1992. Although I was born in New York, I didn't grow up in New York. I moved back to Venezuela. That's where I'm from originally. And I moved back here. It's okay, I'm loud enough. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I moved back to the United States back in 92. I was only 18. And I didn't speak English at all. Not one word. And I ended up in a place called Wichita, Kansas. Not far from here. How many of you know about The Wizard of Oz? Raise your hand. Only one person back there. You need to watch that movie at some point. But nothing. Just a very, very plain city. I came from a very, very big city, Caracas, to a very, very tiny city in the United States. And nobody spoke Spanish. I couldn't communicate with anybody. You've all experienced, or a lot of you have experienced that, right? If you didn't speak English when you first came here, you had to find either people that spoke Spanish to you or spoke your language, or you had to figure something out. And automatically, you were actually observing their body language as well, because that was the only way that I was able to survive in the United States, is that I had to observe people to try to figure out what it is that they were trying to say to me. Okay, so that's how I started my journey here. I was supposed to come here only for 6 months. I was already about to go to college in Venezuela. But I didn't want to go to college speaking one language. To me, it was very important, very, very important that I could speak at least 2 languages. And I came to the United States specifically to learn English. And what happened is that I liked it here so much that I decided to stay. And I've been here for over 25 years now. And I can't tell you what a big difference speaking 2 languages has made for my life. Because I couldn't be where I am today if I didn't speak Spanish and English. Every single job that I've had has benefited either for the company or for me being able to speak 2 languages. They always either gave me more money because I had that talent, or they would find me, I had other opportunities within the companies to make more money because I could speak Spanish. And you all can do the same thing. I'm doing it with my son as well. He was born here. He was raised here. Spanish is not his first language. But he's trying, and I'm trying to do what I'm doing with you. I want you to know how important it is. First of all, that you don't lose your original language. I don't want you to lose your native language. Absolutely, keep it, keep speaking it. But embrace being able to speak English. Because it's going to make a huge difference in your school years that you have left, and in your career in the future. I can guarantee you it will always give you an advantage over everybody that has the same skills that you do, but they don't speak English, or they don't speak Spanish, or any other language. It will always give you that advantage. So if you're going for applying, let's say, give me some careers that you're thinking about.
Lawyer.
I'm sorry?
Lawyer.
A lawyer? So a lawyer, you can go to 2 markets, right? Do you speak Spanish? Is that your first language, or what's your first language? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yes? So a lawyer that speaks Spanish will have an advantage over a lawyer that can only speak English. Why? Because now I can double my clientele. I can double the kind of people that I go after. And I do the same thing with my body language workshops. I can actually do body language workshops here, and I can go to any country in South America and make money down there because I speak Spanish as well, because I didn't lose my Spanish language. I kept it. And I intend to keep using it, but I speak English perfectly because I really wanted people to understand me, first of all. So not only did I learn English, I didn't learn English just good enough. I learned English so that people would almost try to wonder if they heard an accent or not. I wanted to be understood, both in English and Spanish. And I had a dad. I didn't go through what Ray went through. I actually was lucky enough that I was born to a family
that had means. My dad happens to be a doctor. So I never had to, if I didn't have to, I didn't have to really worry about work. I didn't have to worry about speaking another language, but I wasn't happy with that. I didn't want my dad to pay for my life. I wanted to have my own life. And I wanted to go through life speaking 2 languages, not only one. And I actually almost speak 3 because I'm trying to learn Portuguese as well. Because Brazil is huge. And there's so much that I could do down there as well. So I'm trying to speak 3 languages now because I want to get into the market. Because if I can do that, now I have 3 and I can make even more money. And it's not only about money. But imagine how many people I can help on a regular basis that don't speak English, and I can help them because I speak Spanish. I can't tell you how many times I go to the store, to the library, to any place where there's an older lady that has been here her whole life, but she doesn't speak English, and I can help her. I translate for them. And I love doing that kind of community service. It feels good to do that kind of stuff, and I want you to feel good doing those kind of things because you all have an advantage or will have an advantage that nobody else will have, which is having that second language. Embrace it, take care of it, and make sure that you stay in school. After that, you can do whatever you want. But I don't want you to drop out because you think it's too hard. There are means. People here are here to help you in any way they can, in whatever language they need to speak to help you. But it's up to you to put that effort. It's up to you to actually have that vision to see what you can actually be if you can speak those 2 languages and you stay in school. So I'll pass it on to you.
So a little bit about me now. I struggled when I first came to school, learning English, being in that environment, because I was in the house. My grandmother lived there. She just spoke no English at all. So I remember being in 2nd grade, and I remember Miss Turner. She knew that I struggled, and she was trying to find some way to get to me to speak more English. She gave me a book of jokes to help me speak English. I think it was to help me speak English. I think I was saying pretty good jokes in 2nd grade. Maybe she was just giving me better jokes to say. I don't know. But she gave that to me. It helped me. I remember being in 4th grade, getting more confident. But I still may feel like how some of you may feel. I still felt that maybe, because there were other kids that could speak better English, had better grades, that sometimes I felt like giving up. But I kept trying. Went to high school. I didn't have a lot of support. By that time, my parents were older. They were focused on their careers. That doesn't mean that they didn't love me, but they were busy working. My older brothers and sisters were already out of the house. There's 4 of us that came at the very end of my parents' life. There were 7 years in between the first group and the last of us. And so we didn't have that opportunity to have that strong role models in the house. And so a lot of stuff we had to do ourselves. I went into the Army, and I wish I had gone to school first. But I didn't feel confident. But like Leo says, there's people here that will help you. I had a counselor, and I hope you never have a counselor like this. I had a counselor that told me, don't worry about going to college. Don't worry about going to school. Just go get a job someplace. What a terrible thing to say to somebody. His name was Mr. Ozuna. I'll never forget his name. You have counselors here. If someone tells you they can't do something for you at the school, ask them why. You have to challenge them. The job here for Louisville ISD is to teach all students. And they do want to do that. I get to talk to the superintendent. I talk to the board of trustees, all the people making decisions. They want every student to have an opportunity to learn. They don't want you to give up. You're going to see a lot of walls, and right now I'm sure you've already seen walls in front of you. You're like, how can I get past that wall? Maybe you don't have a good grade in math. Maybe you struggle with algebra. I know I did. But there's tutors to help you do those things. There's tests you can take to figure out how, because everybody learns different ways, right? My son Joaquin, his name's Joaquin Diego. He's a real smart kid, but he's not the typical kid. He's very shy. And so he's in fifth grade right now. And when he was in second grade, some teachers said, well, we think he's having a learning disability. He's not having a learning disability. He just learns different than the way you teach him. And you're going to teach him, and you're going to find a way to teach him differently. And we challenged them. And we didn't say no was okay. And if you don't have a parent that can challenge for you, trust me, you have people that are ready to stand up. Your teachers, your counselors in this campus are ready to stand up for you and challenge the opportunities that you have. But you can't give up. It's easy. Giving up's easy. To just say, oh, I wasn't good enough. I see a lot of my friends from high school that thought they weren't good enough. And I see the road that's taking them to. They didn't think the English language was important to them. They didn't think studying was important to them. And I see where that's ended up for them. The only difference is that I had somebody to advocate for me. I had somebody to say and have a voice, right? And you have people right in this room that will have your voice. But you got to believe in what you're doing too. So I got out of the Army. I decided to go to college. I graduated at Texas State University. Remember, in high school, I had a hard time. And you know what? Not everybody's going to graduate 10%. If you do, that's fantastic. My son Joaquin and my daughter Maya Lina are going to graduate 10% in their class. They're super smart. They're gifted and talented students. But I wasn't that student. I graduated in the bottom 20% of my class in high school. And I could have said, just give up. But I went to college, and the first paper I wrote, my English professor, everybody got a grade. You know, you get an A, B, or C. On the top of my paper, he wrote the word H-U-H question mark. He said, your English essay writing skills is terrible. Why are you here? I said, because I want to get an education. He said, well, then you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to come visit with me, and we're going to have to talk about it, and I will help you. And he helped me. 4.5 years later, I graduated from Texas State University with honors. I had over a 3.0 in my overall, in my major, which is sociology. I had a 3.84 GPA. Now remember, this kid that graduated bottom 20% of his class, because of his experiences and because he was learning English and had a command and because he had somebody to advocate for him, graduated with honors. That opened other doors.
That graduated with honors in
College. So here's this marker. So here, let's imagine your life as a hallway. There's a hallway going down. And right now you're in the first couple of doors. And this hallway has a lot of doors. There's a door to learn how to speak English. There's a door to learn how to do algebra. There's a door to graduate from high school. There's a door to get a job. There's a door to go to vocational school or go to university. There's all kinds of doors. And the better you learn English, the more languages, if you can know 2 or 3 languages or 4 languages, there's more doors to open. That doesn't mean you have to open those doors. But it means that they're available to you. They're not available to me. I don't speak 4 languages. And if you put yourself in that position where you have your native language and you learn English, you get a good command, I think it's awesome that Leo's trying to learn a 3rd language. He will have more opportunities down that hallway of life. You don't have to open those doors. Many people don't. But if you don't learn English, if you don't continue with your education, there'll be less doors open to you. And so all we're trying to say to you is that do everything you can. Don't give up. It's up to you guys. I can't go learn English for you. The advocates you have in this room can't go do it for you. You have to do it. And yeah, I know excuse my language, it sucks. It's tough. It's hard. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Right? It's not easy. I promise you, there's a lot of people that are cheering for you. You've never seen my face before. You've never seen Leo's. But I promise you, we are working in different communities. I have a meeting tonight from 5:30 until 9 o'clock tonight, talking about the school district and talking about the different buildings. Last fall, I had a meeting every Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30 at City Hall, talking about the roads. For 6 months. There's a lot of people in the community, and I'm not an exception. There's a lot of people in the community that are doing things to try to make sure that you have the best environment so you can learn. So you can learn English, so you can learn algebra, so you can learn science, so you can learn geography, so you can have that opportunity. If you don't know how to fill out a form, then ask for help. And if somebody says, well, I can't help you, then find somebody else to ask. It's like this house, right? And you're like, how do I get inside? The front door's locked. Well, let me try the back. The back door's locked. What would you do next? If you couldn't get in the front door or the back door, how would you try to get inside? You can answer. One of you. How would you try to get inside the house? Go do what? Ask for help? Maybe look for a window? Right? Maybe the window's locked. You gotta find some way to get in there. Those are your opportunities, they're in there. The command of the English language is those opportunities, and they're inside that house. There's a lot of people that wanna help you. I wanna help you. But I can't be everywhere. But a lot of us doing a little bit of work, hopefully can open some of those doors and help you understand that there are opportunities for every single one of you. You know, I learned a lot from Leo already about body language, talking about people crossing their arms, they're closed to you.
Well, and one of the things that I think you need to remember is that, you know, Ray and I had very different upbringings, completely different. He was a great student in college. I was not. I was never a good student. I didn't like school. To be honest, I did not like school. But I knew how important school was for me. And I decided to just suck it up and go through it. So I did high school in Venezuela, but I didn't do college in Venezuela. I did college here. And I was bad. I was bad in college. College was not for me per se. I knew that I had to do it, and I had a very, very strict dad that said, you have to do college, and you have to pick a career, and you have to graduate. And I did that. I went through 4 years of college. Several of the classes I did okay, but there were several that I didn't grow up here, so I didn't have American history, for example. I flunked American history twice. And I thought it was unfair. And life is unfair anyway, right? We're going to have a tough life no matter what. Get used to that. You're going to go through obstacles. But you're either going to see them as obstacles that you have to overcome, or you're going to see them as a wall and then back out. And never go through that wall. And then you're going to end up doing the job for somebody else instead of being you, the person that is in charge. I decided that I wasn't going to let history, my history classes, be the end of my college career because it was bringing down my GPA. So I found ways to figure out why do I need, because American history is a requirement, but we're not all Americans. We were not all born here. We didn't grow up learning American history and about Lincoln and Washington and Adams and any of the other presidents. So it was extremely tough for me to do that, and I found a way that excused me from having to take American history, and I was able to take other college credit classes that helped my GPA. And I had careers where I had to go to an office 8 to 5 and do all that kind of stuff. And that's what Ray does. And there's a lot of people that do that kind of career. Mine was always more of an entrepreneur. Do you know what the word entrepreneur means? No? Entrepreneur means that you don't go work for somebody 8 to 5. Entrepreneur means that you come up with an idea and you start your own business. Okay? My business is about public speaking. It's about doing what I'm doing right now. I do workshops. I work with people, but I run my own business. Do I need a college degree for that? Not always. But I wanted to have that college degree because I knew that it would make me look better. I could not drop out of high school because nobody would give me the time of day if I didn't have a high school education or if I didn't have a college education. And I actually had regular jobs that took me to where I am today. And I'm able to do what I do because of the education that I have. How many of you struggle day to day with your education, with a class? How many of you are struggling with one class in particular right now? Raise your hand if you are. Come on. Say honestly, nobody's going to punish you. How many of you have one class that you're really, really struggling with? What class is that? Algebra? What else? Algebra, anything that is not algebra. Spanish. She's not a native Spanish speaker, but she's learning Spanish, right? So that's one of the classes. What else? Algebra and Spanish. Anything else? English? English is tough. I don't know about any of the Asian languages, but Spanish is really easy compared to English. Because in Spanish we say a, e, I, o, u, and that's it. Right? It doesn't change. Here, if it's a double O, then it might sound like moon. But if you put an L, then it sounds like blood. So it's like very confusing. You have to really learn. Actually, it's not even rules. English is the weirdest language because you just have to know it, right? There's not really, you know some of the rules, but everything else you almost have to remember. Spanish is really easy. But just because it's easy doesn't mean that it's the best thing for you. So English is what you need to go through. English is what that's your obstacle, right? That's the one that you're going to go, do I just give up and drop out and be nothing for the rest of my life? Not have the opportunities that I could have? Or do I see English as just an obstacle to be overcome? And it doesn't, like Ray said, there's many ways to do it. There's never just one way to overcome an obstacle. Never. You just have to be creative. And I don't want you cheating. That's not being creative. Okay? Don't be cheating and writing the answers in your arm or anything like that. Trust me. I know what you do. I've been there. We have, I'm not even going to say because I don't want to give you any ideas. But I've seen it all. And there's ways. You can find help. You can find somebody here that actually knows how to speak English better than you do. That makes him an expert. Do you know that? You know what an expert is? You've heard that word before? An expert. Do you see a teacher as an expert in algebra?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see an English teacher as an expert in English? Okay. I call myself a body language expert. Nobody gave me that title. But I know more about body language than you do, right?
Yeah.
So that makes me, whether you like it or not, an expert. And what I want you to do is find a friend that is an expert simply because they know more than you do. And they're going to be willing to help you. And the best way to learn something, by the way, is when you learn it, teach it to somebody else immediately. So if I learn a new word, for example, what's the new word that I said today? Shack, right? So if you now go to your parents or you go to a friend and say, I learned today that a shack is like a house, but without windows and without rooms and without piping and anything like that. Now you're never going to forget what shack is. You will always know that. Who's struggling with algebra? Okay, so you learn a new algebra concept, and you teach it to who else was struggling with algebra?
Jose.
You teach it to Jose. Now, you are actually going to remember that concept as well, because you have taught it to him. Your brain, that's the best way to learn anything, is by learning it and teaching it to somebody else. And that's the way I learned body language as well. I learned it, studied it, and started teaching it. And the more I taught it, the better I became, and the more I remembered it. And that makes you an expert. And I think eventually, all of you can be experts at the English language. And it's going to give you the opportunity to teach it to the next generation or to teach it to the next group of students that are going to be in this class next year. And maybe we can make that room smaller. Maybe instead of this many students, we have 3/4 of you. And then the next year, we have only half. And then eventually, we don't even have to worry about this. Because you guys will be all excited about knowing that English is just the beginning. It's not the end. And if you start thinking about English as the obstacle that ends your career, that ends your school, then you're going to have a really, really tough time with life. And I don't want to see that. I want you all, every single one of you, to be successful. Because every single one of you has that potential. So I want you to tell yourself, I have the potential. And I want to hear it. Say, I have potential.
I have potential.
I can speak English.
I can speak English.
I will not drop out of school.
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 Raise your hand. I will not drop out of school.
I will not drop out of school.
And I will teach other people English.
And I will teach other people English.
Excellent. That's your commitment to me. My commitment to you, if you need anything from me, you ask her and she can find me and I will help you with whatever you need. I make that commitment to you because I want you to do well. Okay? All right?
Yes.
You will take advantage of that, I hope.
So I'm going to finish up with talking about opportunities. So Leo talked about teaching folks. But also to get good at something, you have to, and one of the things he mentioned briefly was studying. If you want to become an expert in something, if you want to be fantastic, if you want to be the best in your field, you have to practice. Anybody here play video games? Anybody? Remember the first time you played that video game? It was Super Mario or whatever it was, Mortal Kombat. I don't let my kids play Mario Kombat. It's too violent. He's only 10. Remember the first time you played and your friend played with you, but your friend was better, and you were terrible, and you got killed every time you got on the battlefield? Nobody was the expert right away. There's always somebody that knew more knowledge. And so same thing with English, and same thing with anything you do in life. You have to practice. You have to put in the time. I promise you, your friend didn't just wake up one day and and could just demolish everybody in the video game. If he was, I'd like to meet that person because I got somebody better than a video game that will demolish him. There's always somebody out there that has more time practicing, has gotten better at it, that knows the different ways to get, that are creative, that are the entrepreneurs when it comes to learning. And you need to look at your education as an opportunity to be an entrepreneur. Be an entrepreneur for yourself in learning the English language. But you gotta practice. It's not gonna happen overnight. And you're gonna get frustrated. And there's gonna be some times you're at home and you're like, this is stupid. I'm getting nowhere. I'm still doing terrible on algebra. I never had the chance to take algebra in high school, ever. They let me graduate without taking it. That's why I graduated the bottom 20% of my class. They don't do that anymore. My son Joaquin is in 5th grade taking algebra. So where I'm going with this is just think about the opportunities you want to create for yourself. You're going to wake up in 10 years and wherever you're at, nobody put you there. You put yourself there. If you want something bad enough, you got to work for it. You got to take advantage of the opportunities. And you got to be good at it. Because you take time to be good at basketball or playing video games or other stuff. So why aren't you taking the time to invest in yourself when it comes to learning English? There's some people in here, our hope is that every single one of you succeed in life. That is our hope and dreams. But I promise you, I have 10 best friends that I went to high school with, that I went to elementary school from my barrio in La Victoria. This is where we grew up in. It's called Victory Gardens in South San Marcos. And I love those guys. They were my brothers. But some went to prison. Some got killed. And a few of them went on to get an education and do something with their lives. Some own companies. There's no reason every single one of you cannot be successful. There's absolutely no reason. There's no wall high enough that will keep you from being successful. Our commitment is to be here and to help you. And that's a commitment of the community to help you. But you got to commit it to yourself. I told you earlier, I cannot learn it for you. You have to take the time to learn it for yourself. And we're going to leave today, and you're going to go on with your life, and you may think, wow, these two guys came in. I'm a little bit older than Leo, but not much older. A little. Just a little bit. It's just all my hair on my chin turned out white. And I'm losing a little bit on top, too. But you got to do it for yourself. We're here to celebrate you, and we're going to leave today. Remember the voices that you heard today. Remember that you have champions in the community, in this classroom, in the community, in your house. Teach your parents, teach other people the English language, teach them stuff about algebra. Try to explain it to them, a simple concept. Even the simple concepts will build those building blocks to help you learn it more. It's all about practice and being invested in what you're doing. It's a gift for me to be here today. When I went to the office this morning at 7:30, and I was leaving, my staff came in at 8. Well, actually, one of them came in early. I didn't ask her to come in early. She came in early because she had some stuff she went to conference. She was like, you have a lot of meetings today. I said, yeah, but I have the most important one the first thing in the morning. I get to visit with you guys. That's awesome. And so thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate it. We're here to answer any questions you have. So know that with this, when the bell rings and you move on to your next class, know that there's somebody following you. Maybe not physically, but not like a creeper like we was talking about earlier. But in spirit, we're here. You're never going to be by yourself. You never were by yourself. And you're never going to be by yourself because we're going to still be here. If I would recommend, if you're learning the English language, to look at a book by Rodolfo Anaya. It's called Bless Me Ultima. Has anybody ever read that book? It's an awesome book. It's a very spiritual book. It talks about the lady's name. She's a curandera. Do you know what a curandera is? So those speak Spanish. She's a healer. She's a healer, a good healer. And her name is Ultima. And she has a little boy, and his name is Antonio. And it's a beautiful story.
What's the name of that book?
It's called Bless Me Ultima. It was written in about 1972 by a guy named Jorge Gonzalez. No, Rodolfo Anaya.
So you could probably get it in English or
Yeah, it's in English and Spanish.
You know how I learned English? I went to work for McDonald's. And I didn't speak English at all, so
In college?
in college. But you can do, I think at some point in high school you can start getting jobs, right? And I did it, nobody told me to do it, but I realized if I stay speaking the language that my friends spoke, because a lot of my friends spoke Spanish, I would never learn how to speak English. And I decided to go, remember I'm in Kansas, not a lot of people speak Spanish there, but a lot of my friends did. So I decided to go to McDonald's. And I got a job there, but I had a job washing potatoes and washing dishes because I couldn't speak English, so I couldn't really communicate with the customers yet. And I had that job for 2 years, and I went all the way from potato and dishwasher to cook to drive-through person, because then I started speaking English and I was able to take order, to assistant manager. All that in 2 years because I immersed myself. I forced myself to speak English. I forced myself to be surrounded by people that spoke English. And one day, I started even having dreams in English, and that's when I knew that I had learned English good enough to actually go. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry?
who paid for your college?
So, thankfully, at that point, my dad paid for my college. So how many of you know where Venezuela is? Venezuela, South America. We're going through a really, really bad time right now. There's a dictator down there. The economic situation is really, really bad. But back then, when I was going to college, it was actually really good. So my dad, thankfully, was able to pay for my college. So I had to at least graduate. I didn't have to get a 4.0 GPA. Or I wish I had, but I couldn't. But he paid for my college. But eventually, I had to start paying for it a little bit as well because he couldn't afford it anymore. So that's why I started getting jobs as well to help pay for my apartment, my car, and all the things that I had to pay for.
So my journey for college was a little bit different in that my parents didn't have any money to give me for college. Remember I told you my dad was a janitor all his life, so they didn't have a lot. We lived in the house is still there, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with 14 people living in it. So it was all of us kids, plus my grandmother lived there too. She was actually our grandaunt, but we saw her as our grandmother. We all lived in that house. Luckily, because of the age group, there's 23 years in between us, we only all lived together for about a month. My sisters were going, and my brothers were going to college or moving out of the house when we were still little kids. And so there was no money for school. But there's programs out there, especially if you're first generation, if your parents haven't gone to school, there's separate money for that. If you're a native Spanish speaker, there's opportunities to apply for money for that. There's a form that you can fill out with the federal government called FAFSA. And so a lot of schools, districts have, and other groups in the community have programs where they'll teach you how to fill it out. They'll teach your parents how to fill it out. You'll have to get some information to them, but they don't have to fill it out for you. Not here, but when I was in San Marcos, we did a one-day workshop where throughout the whole day, anybody could come. We had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. People could come, and we'd show them how to fill it out. But there's money. Don't ever let money get in the way of doing that. Now, I did get some grants. I got a Pell Grant and some money for school by applying for it. Money that I didn't have to pay back. Right now, everybody's so worried about how much it costs to go to school. I got lucky when I graduated in December of 1997. I only owed $5,000 for my whole college. I mean, it's probably more than $5,000 just to go to one semester of school now.
Well, and there's in colleges that the scholarships are, if you know how to play chess, for example, you can actually get a scholarship. And which boggles my mind, there's actually colleges that will pay for your college career, for your 4 years of college, by you playing chess. How many of you play chess? Do you know how to play chess? Ajedrez. Okay, if you get it good enough, you can actually go to college because you know how to play that. How many of you play sports? Any sport. Tennis, basketball, baseball, whatever, soccer. Any of those, there's always a school that will give you college by you being a part of the team for the school. So, like Ray said, it's not the end. Money is not required for you to go to college anymore. But your brain is.
And your determination and your commitment to yourself. That's all the way it stands in front of you. There's money that's available. Even if it won't come, and a lot of times it won't come from your parents because they can't afford it. You know, they're struggling. They're working, you know, they love you guys, and some of the people are working 2 40-hour-a-week jobs. They're working 80 hours a week. But don't let that stand in your way. There's all kinds of ways. I know I'm not endorsing this, but there's money if you enter the military. There's money for school that way too. But there's much better ways than entering by doing that. But there's certainly funds to do that too. In fact, I think we just did a program where we did through the Education Foundation, we did we're hanging flags from different universities and military in the cafeteria. Just as a reminder to you all belong on the university campus. You all belong on some vocational school campus. You can go to a community college. I took algebra 5 times in college. I struggled with it. It was tough.
I still struggle.
I felt like giving up. But I could not pass it at Texas State University, so I went to, it was called Austin Community College, like North Central Texas College here. And I found an instructor in a smaller classroom with about 19 students that gave me that kind of attention that I needed to pass algebra. I didn't make an A, but I made a C, and that was good enough to pass, right? If I hadn't done that, I may not have graduated from college. Because every time I took it at university, I kept failing because I was in a classroom with 300 people. The professor didn't have time to talk to me, to give me that kind of instruction. But in a smaller setting, and I am a huge fan of community colleges. There's more focused learning there. There's more flexibility in how they teach you. It's a lot less expensive than going to university. You know, to me, what does it matter if you go to the University of Texas or Notre Dame University or Stanford and get a liberal arts degree? And I'm not saying that, let's say you get a degree in liberal arts in dance. As opposed to somebody that goes to university and learns a technical, like computer science. I promise you, the first 5 years of those, their lives are going to be completely different. The person that loves dance is going to have fun doing dance, but they're not going to get paid a lot. The person that does computer science, their amount of money they're going to make is going to be a lot better. I have a nephew that graduated with computer science degree. He's been out of school probably 12 years now. He's doing real good for himself, him and his family. But again, it all comes back to those opportunities you provide for yourself. You know, and you can lean back in your chair. You can say, "Well, you know, this is boring," but it's up to you. We're not going to do it for you. We'll show you where the door is at. You have to open it. You have to walk down that hallway. I mean, think about when you come into school. You have to get out of bed. You have to get dressed. You have to walk through that door. That's a commitment. Think of those walls as little challenges. And every little piece, getting out of bed, coming to the campus, opening that door, that took some effort. Because you know, and if you don't, I promise you, there's other kids that are not making that commitment. They're not getting up. They're not coming through that door. But you are. So take the rest of that journey down that hallway. Open those doors.